A guy wearing a white and gray hoodie on a train. Do you know what he does? When he gets off, he acts all weird. He takes off the hood, removes his sunglasses, and starts looking around as if he's searching for something. Then, out of nowhere, he bends down and grabs something that was hidden in his pants. Super suspicious, right? But look, no one at the station noticed anything. But wait, let me go back a little in time. 20 minutes earlier, three very close sisters, Nia, who was 18, Taya, and Latifa, got on the same train. What they didn't know was that the strange guy in the hoodie was watching them. He sat close by, pretending it was nothing, hidden behind those sunglasses. Then, when it was 9:35 p.m., the girls got off the train to change lines. They even called their dad, saying they were on their way home. But then, something terrible happened. Suddenly, the cameras show the guy running out of the station. A police officer saw that something very serious had happened inside, and everyone rushed to help. After that, the man appeared at a bus stop, caught a bus, and vanished. But you know what's even more incredible? He thought he was being very clever and that no one would find out who he was. But he made a mistake. A mistake so big that the police were able to find him later and bring justice for what he did to the sister. It's a story that sounds like a movie, right? But it really happened. It was an apparently ordinary Sunday night in Oakland, California. The air was warm, typical for July, and the sky was beginning to be painted with the colors of dusk. The calendar marked July 22, 2018, a date that would forever be etched in the memory of a family. In their home, a father was relaxing after a long day, perhaps thinking about the work that awaited him on Monday, when the shrill ring of the phone cut through the silence at 9:45 p.m. The display showed the name of one of his daughters, but the voice on the other end of the line was not the usual one. It was broken, gasping, desperate. At that moment, he would later recount with tears in his eyes, "My world began to crumble." You know when your heart races so fast that it feels like it's going to explode? That's how it was. Her words were confusing, jumbled by fear, but my instinct as a father screamed that something was very wrong. Without even grabbing a jacket, he ran to the car. The keys trembled in his hands as he tried to start the vehicle. The journey to the MacArthur BART station never felt so long. Every red light was torture. Every second felt like an eternity. When he finally arrived at the station, the scene he encountered looked like something out of a nightmare. Red and blue lights from police cars and ambulances danced on the walls, creating frightening shadows. The sound of sirens mixed with agitated voices and shouted orders. Amid the confusion, he spotted one of his daughters being attended to by paramedics. Her arm was bleeding, but that wasn't what scared him the most. It was her vacant, traumatized look. When he approached, desperately asking what had happened, she merely whispered, in a voice that barely came out, "Go see." 3 words that carried the weight of the world. With his heart in his throat, he climbed the station stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. At the top, reality hit him like a punch. His Nia, his sweet smiling girl who had talked just yesterday about her dreams for the future, was there, motionless. In just 3 minutes, the time of a TV commercial, a life full of promises had been brutally interrupted. Trembling, he picked up the phone again. Now he needed to make the hardest call of his life, to tell Alicia, Nia's mother, who was in Sacramento. The words barely came out, but they didn't need to. The cry of a mother who loses a daughter is a sound that transcends words. Within minutes, Alicia was on the road, driving as if she could turn back time if she arrived quickly enough. The night that began like so many others would forever mark the lives of this family. Nia was only 18, with a whole life ahead of her, dreams to fulfill, stories to live. One moment she was laughing with her sisters, and the next she was gone. I will continue to tell you this sad story, but now comes the part where the police worked hard to find out who did this terrible thing. In the darkness of the California night, a car was cutting through the road between Sacramento and Oakland. At the wheel was Alicia, a heartbroken mother, driving through her tears. The radio was off, and the only sound was that of the engine and her tormented thoughts. That trip, she would later recount, her voice choked with emotion, felt like time had stopped. Every mile seemed like an eternity. My phone was on the passenger seat, and I couldn't stop looking at it, waiting, praying. You know when you want something so badly that it hurts your chest? That's how I felt, wishing someone would call saying it was a mistake, that my girl was okay. At Highland Hospital in Oakland, The fluorescent lights in the emergency hallway flickered continuously. Tia Latifa, one of the sisters, was being attended to by a team of dedicated doctors. Every minute was crucial. The family took turns between silent prayers and whispered conversations in the waiting room, while nurses came and went with worried looks. The girl's father, sitting in an uncomfortable chair at the hospital, couldn't close his eyes. Every time he tried, the same questions returned to torment him. How did this happen? Why my girls? Did we cross paths with that man somewhere and not realize it? Did we do something unknowingly? It was like trying to assemble a puzzle in the dark, with half the pieces missing. Meanwhile, at the MacArthur BART station, a team of investigators was working tirelessly. The security cameras were like silent eyes that had witnessed everything. In a room full of monitors, they watched and re-watched the footage, looking for any detail that could help. Then came the first moment of hope. On one of the screens, they saw the suspect entering a nearby parking lot. "Stop!" shouted one of the investigators. "Rewind the footage." And there it was. The man had left something behind. A black backpack. Quickly, a team was sent to the location. The backpack was there, like a time capsule left by the criminal. Inside, they found a wallet, documents, and other personal items. Small pieces of a larger puzzle that was beginning to take shape. The clues led to a name: John Lee Cowell, 27 years old. When investigators looked into his background, they discovered a violent past. Convictions for assault with a deadly weapon, robberies. But the most intriguing part was that there was absolutely no connection between him and the Wilson family. It was as if he had chosen his victims at random, making everything even more frightening and senseless. "It's like a stranger entered our lives and destroyed everything," said one of the family members, "for no reason, with no explanation, with no chance to defend ourselves." As the night progressed, two parallel stories unfolded. In a hospital, a family prayed for Tia Latifa's recovery and mourned the loss of Nia. On the streets of Oakland, an intense manhunt began, with police determined to find the man who had caused so much pain. I'm going to tell you about the moment Latifa arrived at Highland Hospital. It's a difficult part of the story, but I will tell it with great care. The hospital lights flickered when the ambulance arrived. Latifa was very confused. Do you know that feeling when you wake up from a bad dream and don't quite know where you are? That's exactly how she felt. The world seemed to be spinning, and the voices around her sounded distant. Everything was a bit blurry, Latifa would later recount, but I remember seeing my brother first. He was there, standing, with an expression I had never seen before. Shortly after, my father entered the room. Lying in that hospital bed, with tubes and machines around her, the first thing Latifa managed to ask was, "Where's Nia?" It was a simple question, but it carried so much weight. Her father stood silently in the doorway. You know when adults take that pause before delivering very sad news? It was like that. When he finally managed to speak and tell what had happened to Nia, Latifa tried to get up from the bed in a rush. Her brother quickly held her back. "Don't get up, don't get up. You need to rest." The saddest part is that just a few hours earlier, everything had been so different. The three sisters, Nia, Latifa, and Tia, were celebrating life with their family. They had gone to visit Aunt Isa, who was very ill, and had thrown a small party for her. It was supposed to be a day of joy, of happy memories. After the celebration, around 9 p.m., the girls went to the Concord BART station to return home to Oakland. It was there that everything changed. There was a man at the station. He saw the girls coming down the escalator and began to watch them. During the 15 minutes they waited for the train, the security cameras showed that he kept looking at them, like a predator watching its prey. When it was time to board the train, he put on a hoodie, grabbed his backpack, and followed the girls. Inside the car, he sat near them, hiding his eyes behind sunglasses. For several stops, he remained there, quiet, just observing. It was an ordinary night in Oakland, and the clock read 9:35 p.m. when the sisters arrived at the MacArthur station. The air was cool, and the sound of the trains mixed with the lively conversations of people returning home. The sisters, Nia, Latifa, and Tia, were excited because they needed to change trains to get home, just like when you need to take a different bus to continue your journey. Tia, the oldest, was the first to enter the new train, while Nia and Latifa followed closely behind, laughing and talking about the amazing day they had. They had spent the afternoon with family, celebrating Aunt Isa's life, who was ill. The atmosphere was light, and the anticipation of returning home together brought a sparkle to the girl's eyes. At that moment, something beautiful happened. A mother was getting off the train with her baby in a stroller. The baby, with his chubby cheeks and curious eyes, caught Nia's attention. When she saw the little one, her eyes lit up, and a radiant smile spread across her face. "Hi, baby!" she exclaimed, waving at the baby. It was such a pure and sweet moment, an instant of joy that seemed to promise that everything was right in the world. But then, suddenly, everything changed. Latifa, who was right behind Nia, recounts what happened with tears in her eyes. "Nia and I were getting on the train when, suddenly, she fell forward. I didn't understand what was happening. She screamed, 'My neck!' And I was frozen, thinking she had tripped." Latifa's heart raced, and the world around her seemed to stop. It was Taya who saw the blood first. The bad man, who was hiding in the shadows, had attacked Nia with a knife, hitting her in the neck twice. Before Latifa could comprehend what was happening, she was also struck. Panic took over the train, and the doors opened and closed as if they were confused, unable to grasp the gravity of the situation. The mother of the baby, who had just exited the train, noticed the horrific scene and quickly took the blanket from her baby, placing it on Nia's neck to try to stop the bleeding. Desperation filled the air, and Latifa, even with the pain pulsating in her own body, could only think about helping her sister. "I was squeezing the blanket with all my strength, trying to stop the blood. I didn't know if I was hurting her. I just wanted her to be okay." A security guard appeared running, and upon seeing the scene, immediately pulled Latifa away, trying to protect her. But Latifa didn't care about her own injuries. All she could think about was Nia. "I didn't care about myself. I just wanted to save my little sister." The love she felt for Nia was so strong that nothing else mattered at that moment. In the last moments, as Nia's life slipped away between her fingers, she called for her sister, "Tifa, Tifa, Tifa," and Latifa, holding her hand, did everything she could to convey strength and love. "It's going to be okay, little sister. I'm here with you. You're my little sister." Those words were all Latifa could offer, a comfort amid the chaos. To this day, Latifa carries a deep sadness in her heart. "I still feel guilty for not being able to save her." And so, the pain of that tragic night remains, reminding everyone of the fragility of life and the strength of love between sisters. Latifa and Taya were determined to do everything they could to find the man who took their little sister Nia away from them. Before Nia left, she had a fear that made her very sad. She always worried that, because of the color of her skin, she or her loved ones could be attacked. Nia used to tell her family, "If something happens to me, I want you to fight to make sure the person who did this is held accountable." Now, with Nia's fear becoming a reality, her family was not going to let the man escape without punishment. Almost 12 hours after the attack, a new hope emerged. The police decided to share the man's photo and information with everyone. He was a violent criminal who was on parole, and now there was an arrest warrant to capture him for Nia's murder. When the news reached everyone, it was as if a wave of determination swept through the city. Latifa and Taya gathered all their brothers, sisters, cousins, and friends. "Everyone was looking at his photo," said Latifa, with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. The news spread quickly, and the residents of Oakland came together to help in the search. The man was a complete stranger to the family, and they were very worried that the attack had been due to Nia's race. As the police analyzed the security footage and the backpack he had left behind, anxiety grew. With each passing hour, information about the man was released, but the family knew they needed more help. People in the city began to mobilize, making posters and sharing his photo on social media. "If we don't draw attention to this, who will?" thought Taya. The community was determined not to let Nia's killer remain free. It was a race against time, and everyone was united in this fight. They wanted justice for Nia and for her to never be forgotten. "We will find this man and make sure he pays for what he did," was what everyone thought, united by the love and memory of the sister they cherished so much. After the tragic loss of Nia, social media became a space for remembrance and struggle. Posts began to appear rapidly, filled with love and solidarity, all accompanied by the hashtag #SayHerName. This hashtag was not just a phrase. It was a collective cry to remember and speak about Black women and girls who have suffered violence, especially at the hands of the police. Each post, each share, brought to light stories of pain and resistance. And as more people joined the movement, the message spread like wildfire. The movement grew and transformed into something powerful. It not only honored Nia but also drew attention to all victims of violence against black people. Indignation and sadness took hold of the community, and the feeling that something needed to change spread like a wave. On the night of the vigil, the train station was filled with people. About 1,000 community members gathered, forming a sea of faces, all united by a common purpose: to honor Nia's memory and demand justice. The station lights shone brightly, reflecting the determined and emotional faces. There were handmade signs, flowers, and lit candles, creating an atmosphere of reverence and solidarity. People shared stories about Nia, recalling her smile, her laughter, and the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about her dreams. It was a special moment where everyone came together to show that Nia would not be forgotten. The voices blended into a chorus of hope and determination, echoing through the station as people embraced and cried together. But even with so many people watching and talking about the man who hurt Nia and tried to hurt Latifa, it seemed like he had disappeared. The anguish hung in the air, and the uncertainty about where he could be left everyone on edge. However, during the vigil, something incredible happened. A phone rang, breaking the tense silence. The police received an anonymous call that would change everything. The person on the other end of the line said they were on a BART train and recognized someone with them. It was the man they were looking for, John Cowell. He was aboard the train heading straight for the MacArthur station, where the vigil was taking place. Adrenaline took over the police officers. They knew they had to act quickly. They didn't know if the man was planning to hurt someone else, so they positioned themselves at the MacArthur station, ready to catch Cowell by surprise when the train arrived. The anticipation and tension were palpable, and everyone in the station was anxious, their hearts racing. Finally, the train arrived, and the doors opened with a familiar ping. The officers looked around, trying to locate the man, but he seemed to have disappeared again. The air was thick with expectation. Each person in the station held their breath, hoping the police could find him before it was too late. The voices from the vigil mingled with the sounds of the station, and everyone was on alert. The hope for justice was alive, and the community's determination was stronger than ever. They knew they needed to fight for Nia and for all the other victims who could no longer speak for themselves. The vigil was not just a remembrance, but a call to action, a reminder that together they were stronger and that the fight for justice would not end until the man who caused so much pain was brought to justice. While the police were at the Pleasant Hill station, which was only 20 minutes away, they continued to search for the man who had hurt Nia and Latifa. And guess what? They found him right in the middle of the train door. One of the officers approached and asked, "Can you tell me your name? Are you John Cowell?" To everyone's surprise, he didn't try to escape or resist. The officers arrested him without difficulty, less than 24 hours after the attack. The hunt had come to an end, but even so, the man seemed to have a plan to escape justice. In February 2020, John Lee Cowell went to trial. He had a history of mental health issues and, during the trial, claimed he was innocent due to his insanity. When called to testify, he began making strange statements, saying he believed the sisters were aliens who had kidnapped his grandmother. He was trying to play crazy, as if it were a trick. During his testimony, he became so agitated that he started shouting and cursing, saying that everyone knew he was innocent. The judge tried several times to warn him to stop, but he didn't listen and kept interrupting the court, cursing at the prosecutor and being removed from the room. The security footage from the night of the attack showed that he had a plan. He was prepared, even having an extra set of clothes to change into afterward. The strangest part was that, instead of attacking anyone else at the station, he specifically targeted the sisters. The prosecution began to consider charging him with a hate crime because there were many women and people on the BART platform, but he specifically chose 3 young black women. Every angle of the footage made this very clear. He was not just acting randomly. There was something much more serious behind his actions. While in custody, the man began to behave very strangely. He started to insult a black female legislator, using many racial slurs. This made it clear that he had a serious problem with people because of their skin color. He attacked Nia and Latifa simply for being who they were. But the question was, how to prove that this was a hate crime? Attorney Butch Ford had an idea. He suggested that the charge be for premeditated murder because the man had observed and followed the sisters to the train before attacking. Nia's family agreed and hoped that he would go to prison for a very, very long time. While analyzing the calls the man made while in prison, the attorney made a concerning discovery. "Mr. Cowell was conversing normally with his mental health caregivers. Although he had mental health issues, he also stated that he needed to stop taking his medication to appear crazier during the trial. This seemed like a trick to deceive people. During the trial, he tried to convince everyone that he couldn't control himself and didn't know what he was doing. But the judge was not fooled. He decided that at the time of the attack, Cowell was sane and knew exactly what he was doing. In the end, John Cowell was convicted of the murder of Nia Wilson and the attempted murder of his sister Latifa. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, with no chance of parole. Nia's family finally felt a sense of relief, knowing that he could no longer hurt anyone else. But at the same time, it was a sad moment. They were still dealing with the pain of losing Nia and the reality of living without her. It was all very confusing and painful. One family member said it was still hard to believe that this had happened. He couldn't sleep or eat properly, and he even had a stroke, which left him with difficulties in speaking and moving. It was a constant reminder of what they had lost. Nia's family's healing journey is long and full of challenges, but each of them finds their own ways to move forward. Latifa, for example, found great support in her dogs. "My dogs keep me awake," she says with a smile. "We have a husky who is super cheerful. She makes me take her for walks, and that helps me stay strong. She is like my therapy." Nia's sisters, Taya and Latifa, still face the difficult feeling of guilt for having survived the attack. But with the help of therapy, meditation, and the love of friends and family, they are managing to reconnect. They know that Nia would always do anything to see them happy. And as her story spreads, they realize how much Nia impacted many people across the country. The community came together to honor Nia, and hundreds of people attended her funeral. She was dressed in white, and her coffin was also white. It was a very special moment, where everyone released doves in her memory. It was beautiful, the sisters remember, with tears in their eyes. The name Nia comes from the Swahili word that means purpose, and Nia's purpose remains alive even after her passing. She was always passionate about fighting for equal rights and consistently put others before herself, spreading kindness and compassion wherever she went. "When I think of Nia, I see her as a ray of sunshine, with a bright smile," says Latifa. "She was my baby, and the love of a sister can never be defined." Nia was very close to her friends and family, and she touched the lives of many people, both near and far. Tributes continue to emerge on social media, with friends, strangers, and even celebrities drawing attention to her story. An incredible example was when the famous basketball player, Steph Curry, dedicated a high school basketball game to Nia and raised over $20,000 to help her family. Her school also held a special tribute for what should have been her graduation. "The class of 2018 wouldn't be complete without one more graduate," said one of the teachers, with a smile on his face. "I am very proud of this achievement. It's so sad that my daughter isn't here to experience this with us." Nia was a girl full of dreams. She loved music and dance and dreamed of having her own dance studio one day. Additionally, she also thought about becoming a paramedic or working in criminal justice because she always wanted to help people in some way. In 2019, to honor Nia's memory, her family created the Nia Wilson Foundation. This foundation is very special. It helps with important things, such as providing mental health support, self-defense classes for homeless people, and job opportunities for youth. Nia's family is dedicated to doing good and making the world a better place, thinking of her every day. "I always say that you make me a better person," said Nia's father, with tears in his eyes. "I carry my daughter's name with great pride, and everything I do, I think of her. I can't feel her here, but I know that Nia wants to be remembered for all the love she had for people and how much she cared for everyone. She fought for the rights of all." He continued, "My daughters and I, and all of us who love her, will continue to seek the truth. Even if it's difficult and we think about it forever, we will succeed. We will succeed." This story shows us that even when we lose someone we love, we can continue their legacy and make a difference in the world by spreading love and kindness, just as Nia did.